Peace, peace, everyone. It's your girl Sequoia Blue back in here another episode. Hope everybody's doing okay on this beautiful Thursday. Today, our guest today is Lisa Sakai, and she is going to teach us some financial tricks to help us get some money in our pockets because it's crazy out here, the inflation, everything going on. I don't know what's going on out here. So, how you doing, Lisa? Thanks for coming on.
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Yes, indeed. So let's start with the first question. So what is the bucket list? The bucket list planning. What does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically kind of what it sounds like. So essentially, everybody has their dream list, their bucket list, their thing that they want to accomplish. And what I try to do is I help people actually check off things off their bucket list. And I try to get them to do it sooner than retirement. Because a lot of times we always say, oh, when we retire, or when I slow down, I'm going to do all my things on my bucket list. Why not start doing some of that stuff now? Because A, you're just going to enjoy life more. And B, it's really going to teach you how to handle your finances if you're motivated to do things and to save for big things rather than necessarily, spending a lot of money on Amazon purchases or whatever else we end up spending our money on. Having those big dreams and those motivations actually helps you become much more of a master over your money.
Oh, I love that. So like what are like some of the programs you have? Like how can people save? Like what if somebody's like, "Hey,
Mhm.
I don't know what to do. What's Roth IRA? What's traditional IRA? Like what do I do?" Like what advice do you give them?
Yeah. So what we do is it's kind of based off of what people need or want, right? So we have some people that come to me and go, been kind of saving and I don't know what to do with it and I don't know where to put money, or I have too much cash. That's a big one now because like you said, inflation, markets have been crazy, things like that. So people are just sitting on a bunch of cash and they don't know what to do with it. Or I have people come and say, I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm a mess with money. I feel like I don't know how to handle it. How do I do that? So it just depends on what they're coming to me with. And some people just say, I want to enjoy life more. How do I do that? And that's where bucket list planning, I really try to get a lot of my clients to do the bucket list planning part of it, but that's where we really focus on um, you know, really putting together some goals, putting together some things so you're not just sitting at home, putting it into your Roth
Yeah.
IRA or whatever it is that you're doing and not enjoying life. That's not what life is all about.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on where they're coming from. And big myth that I'm going to disperse here, or I'm going to dispel here, is that you don't have to be a multimillionaire to work with a financial person. You
Mm,
don't. You just have to come with an open mind. You do know that you're going to have to pay for some services, but you just need to find who's right for you, how they work, if that's the right fee structure for you, that's the right relationship you want, that kind of thing. But it's not about I have millions of dollars and now I can go see somebody. It's about I need some help and who's the best fit for me.
that makes sense because some people get intimidated because they're like, well, I don't want to go to someone and spend all this. And it is true, like having the right fit, going through different, because some people really do need that sit down. What are the goals? Like, I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
Rich Life by Ramit on
Uh-huh.
Netflix, but
Yeah, I've
it
seen
makes
it.
sense
Yeah.
to sit down and put your bills in Excel sheet and then come up with a
Mhm.
plan to live that rich life. Because like what advice do you give someone that's like, I want to get a BMW, want to live a good life, but yet I want to save, but they might not be
Yeah.
making a lot. Like, how would that work for someone?
Yeah. So he's got a good theory on that. And that's kind of what I do too. So Ramit Sethi has a great show and a great book.
Yeah,
If people are just trying to start to figure that out. But that's his saying is the rich life, right? How you live your rich life. And
yeah.
he's right. It's about balance. So he will say stuff like, maybe you really want beautiful shoes. You want Louis Vuitton shoes and you want, oh, I'm sorry, Christian Baton, I think it is. I'm not a shoe person, but you want these amazing shoes. Well, maybe if that's what's really important to you and that's what your rich life is, maybe going out to eat to these extravagant places isn't on there. And so it's really about balance. Like, where do you spend your money and where do you not? If you're never at home, do you need some lavish place to live? Maybe you could just live in a studio apartment, save some money, and, spend money someplace else that you want, like traveling or whatever else it is that's keeping you away from your home. So it really is about balance because you want to enjoy your life. I always say live a lifestyle you love now and be able to maintain it in the future. So if we're
Yeah.
just doing now, we don't know, there's bumps in the road. We've all had years where we're like, oh my gosh, this needs to stop. Like, I don't know what's happening this year.
Mhm.
And in order to continue to live the life that you really want, which is truly about independence, it's about being able to do things when you want to do them, how you want to do them, and not worrying about money. That's really what everybody's goal or dream is. And
Yeah.
so essentially, it's about that balance. So if you want to drive your BMW, let's work that into the plan. But you might have to give up, I don't know, going on vacations if that's not that important to you.
Yeah.
Or, maybe the vacations are more important than driving the BMW. So it's about balance, really.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I totally agree. It's like figuring out what works for you because some people are going to just be more aggressive and say I'm going to make more money so I can do it, but in reality some people are like, "Hey, it's the 50,000 I'm going to make." And that's like the Dave Ramsey
Mhm.
effect where you're making that 50,000.
Yeah,
This is where I'm be at, and it's like then you got to work with that, And
exactly.
I think I seen a family that basically they gave up their cars and everything, and they just ride bikes around and they live off a small income. It's like 40,000 a year, and they
Mhm.
have 3 kids, and I'm like, how in the heck do you do that? Because me being single with no kids, I'm like, man, I'm trying to get through here, and it's
Exactly.
it's I'm like that's some real budgeting, but they kind of came up with that idea so they can live that what their rich life is, whereas they work less. So
Mhm.
I think that's the key to it. I think that's the main
Yeah.
key.
It is. It's about actually building your life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but it
No,
actually
you're
goes
good.
back to this. So I think a lot of times, especially as women, but just in general, we have a lot of shoulds. Like, we should do this, we should do that. This is something that we have to do. And do you really want to do that? Or do you not really want to do that? And so when we're looking at finance, there's a lot of things that we think that we should do, including where we're spending money, right?
Mhm.
Like, how many people go to these extravagant restaurants and they really don't enjoy it, but they go because
Yeah.
their friends want to go, and then they're out like 300 bucks and they're like, for
Ugh,
this like tiny little portion or whatever it is. And they would have much rather just gone for a walk with their friend or gone on a
see.
hike on a Saturday with them, which is no money, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of times I think we let because we don't want people to think I'm cheap or I don't, or anything like that. So we go do this stuff that we don't really want to do. I remember when I was young, I would go out. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. I would go out to like clubs and, I was really young, going out to clubs and things like that. I really didn't enjoy it after a while. I mean, they're all the same after a while, right? But I'd keep going because I wanted to hang out with my friends and that's what they wanted to do. Well, going to a club is expensive. And so you're
Yes,
spending
it
all
is.
this money to hang out with my friends because that's what they wanted to do. And probably if I sat down and said, look at, I'd rather go get a cup of coffee or let's go for a walk or let's go to a dinner so that I can actually hear you, that kind of
Yeah,
thing, that maybe they would have agreed with me. But we're so afraid of tension
man.
and friction and that kind of stuff that we don't actually say what we want to do. We let others influence where and ultimately influence where we're spending money too, because
Yes.
those things are expensive. And so I always say, you need to live the life that you want to live.
I love that you just said that. It's funny because I was just thinking the same thing. I saw a quote on social media and it's saying, "What is your fun?" Like if your fun is watching your favorite show on Netflix and having, ordering some food and having some wine,
Mhm.
that's cool. But what I see in society and especially my age group, they're like, "Oh, oh, you got to have fun. You got to go date. You got to go out here. You got to go here." And it's like, well, what if my fun is watching Netflix with my feet up and
Exactly.
having a glass of wine? And it could start at
Yeah.
25 to older. Like it doesn't, you
Oh,
don't have to be like,
totally.
oh, I gotta go out because I'm 23 or I gotta go out because I'm 30 or. No, you don't
Yeah.
have to do it. Whatever's fun for
Yeah.
you, and I think that can help people save
Exactly.
a lot of money.
Yeah, I totally agree. For some reason, the exactly like sitting, having a glass of wine, watching Netflix on a Saturday night is seen as taboo or seen as almost lazy, right? Especially after
Yeah.
the pandemic, because people are like, all I got to do was sit around and do. Well, maybe some people still like doing it.
Yeah,
It's
like
okay. And it's almost like, well, I'll give you a real world example. We were just on vacation. We go to Jamaica
mm.
and, we go to Jamaica a lot. We just love it out there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people are like, "Well, what do you do on vacation?" I'm like, "Nothing." What do you mean nothing?" "Nothing. I sit on the beach, I have a cocktail, I'm reading a book, or I'm
That
talking to my
part.
husband." Like, that's all I do. And the looks I get from people are like, "You don't go scuba diving, you don't go." No, because it's funny, like, I was just telling my husband this, there are these people who are paddleboarding, and paddleboarding I've never tried, but I assume it's much harder than it looks, so just
Yeah.
FYI. But it was funny, I was watching them, I was like, I don't really wanna do that because I don't want somebody telling me the rules that I have to follow and
Mhm.
where I can go. Like, I'm on vacation, I don't wanna deal with that kinda stuff. I don't wanna learn
Yeah.
something new. I just wanna relax. But I get a lot of judgment from people when they're like, "You don't do anything?" I'm like, "No,
And, like,
nothing."
what is the deal? Like, if it's me, not you. It's like so many
Yeah,
people want you to morph into their reality, but you have your own
exactly.
reality. And I
You
had to
do.
stand on my square with that. I had to do that with myself. Like, certain things are just fun for me, and I have to explain it, and then they'll get it. And some don't, but
Yeah,
some do get it. They be like,
yeah,
"Oh, okay, you know what? You're right. I didn't think about that." Like,
yeah.
you
No,
know,
totally get it. Yeah, it's funny though. We feel like we have to explain things, but I'm like, I don't there's no once you hit a certain I'm 42 this
oh, you
year
look
and I'm
good.
like,
Yeah,
I'm not going to explain it to people.
that part.
It's my life. I'm paying for it. Like,
Yes,
leave me alone.
it's your life. I love that we brought that
Yeah.
up. So now I want to talk about life insurance policies because this is a
Yeah,
big topic.
it
I'm
is.
a look. I know a little bit about a lot. I'm not a finance guru like you and stuff, and I need, still working on my numbers here. But I must say that the life insurance policy they were talking about how you can like get a life insurance policy and then borrow on it later. Do
Mhm.
you recommend that to people as a way to kind of use for
Depends.
business or just
Yeah.
emergency?
Yeah, depends. That's not a
Yeah.
great answer, but that's the right answer to say.
Yeah.
So I started in the life insurance industry. A lot of us in the finance world did. So I understand life insurance, and when I started, that's what we were taught to do: is sell these policies to, have
Mhm.
cash value that you can borrow from, and then there's this whole thing about using it as a bank and all this stuff. I would say there's a couple things to think of. One is that it's still a life insurance policy. So it's going to have expenses in it. There's going to be expenses that aren't necessarily really obvious that are in there. And you have to be careful of that because those expenses could be more expensive than investing it someplace or having it in the bank or some other investment out there. So you do have to be careful of that. The other thing is that you have to be careful of the type of insurance policy you're in. So are you in one that's completely guaranteed, which is called a whole life policy? Are you in one that's in the markets, in the stock markets? How does that work? Um, all that kind of stuff. And I would say you want to have it reviewed before you buy anything. You want to have it reviewed from an outside source, because sales is sales,
Yeah.
and you want to make sure. A lot of times I have people come to me to review insurance policy, and the insurance people are just telling them all the positives and are not
Yeah.
going through any of the negatives. Everything has a negative. If it sounds too good to be true, then you haven't been told the whole story on it. So I always say that there's just a lot of things that you need to kind of keep in mind with that kind of thing. Is it the best tool to build an emergency fund? 9 times out of 10, no, is
Mm.
gonna be my answer on that. But
Yeah.
it's not a bad place to put money. It just has to fit overall. I also think one thing to kinda keep in mind is one product, whether that's investing in the stock market, real estate, one product is not going to solve everything. So
Yeah.
life insurance shouldn't be your whole thing. It
Mhm.
should be a portion of it. It's called, everybody hates this term because we use it too much, but diversification is there for a reason,
Yeah.
and it should be part of it, not the full thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that because it's like, you see so much on social media and you really got to use discernment and really
Yeah.
ask people questions because you get caught up in the okey doke and
Exactly.
stuff. And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
yeah, so people, please do your research out here before you just
Yeah,
just go listen to these guys on YouTube and stuff because there's always
exactly.
something to everything.
There's always
Um,
something. Yeah, there's always something. And you
yeah,
don't know for sure that it's right for you. So that's
that
why,
part.
somebody,
Yeah.
yeah, somebody in our industry or something, you might you want to find a fiduciary who's going to do the right thing for you. And
Mhm.
as fiduciaries, we have to tell you what fits and what doesn't fit. We can't just like sell you something to sell you something kind of thing. So you do want to look
Yeah.
for something like that.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Yeah, that was good
Yeah.
advice because yeah, y'all gotta watch out here. Please don't get caught up, y'all. Um,
Yeah.
so also stocks, like a lot of every finance person, everybody's saying get some stocks, get some stocks. And
Hmm.
what happened is some people think they're gonna get money now from the stocks, but it's
Yeah.
a slow build up. And what do you recommend to
It is.
someone that feels like, oh, I need some money now to produce, I guess, some extra income, some residual income?
Hmm.
Do you think they could do a high yield savings account, or
Hmm.
what would you recommend?
Yeah, I would say for like emergency fund money, that you should always have some boring money sitting
Yeah.
around, which is something that's accessible, that's not, doing fabulous things someplace. That high yield savings accounts could be a really good place to put some money, because they are getting pretty good interest rates right now. Now that with the Fed raising the rate, it's painful in other areas, but it's been really good for high yield savings
Yeah.
account.
Yeah.
I mean, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, you were getting 0.4%, and now you're getting 4%. I mean, it's
Dang.
it's done wonders for it. But at the same time, the market's strange. So um, I think you have to, it depends on what kind of investor you are, right? There are those investors who are kind of putting money in for the long term and want a long term strategy and growth. And those people are not necessarily going to be picking stocks to sell to, are going to do the day trading, turning
Yeah.
portfolios over. They're going to find a really well diversified portfolio and do that for a long term. That doesn't mean you don't make changes from time to time, but that just means we're not constantly trading things. Then there are those who are of the mindset to get really high rates of return very quickly. So they tend to be those ones that are following the people on individual stocks and getting some big growth here and there. That's a much more dangerous game to play because you have a bigger chance of being wrong. If
Yeah.
you're just investing in the market as a whole, chances are you're going to, historically, the market has gone up over time, So if it still continues to trend that way, you're probably going to be okay. But one individual stock can be traumatic, right? Because if it goes through ups and downs and you don't really understand how that game's played and you're not really fully researching it, it can, even if you are fully researching it,
Mhm.
it's still you're investing in one company versus 1,000 or
Yeah.
2,000 companies. And so I think you have to know what your objective is when you're investing. I think you also need to know your timeline when you're investing. And I would consult, I'd do some research. If you're going to do it on your own, do some research on that. There are, do it yourself, robo advisors and things like that out there too, if you could use that, or you could come to a professional like me and have help on that kind of thing. But it just depends on what type of advisor you are. But just always know that the stock market is going to go up and down as we saw
Yes.
last year. I mean, look at bonds. Bonds were horrible last year, and nobody
Mhm.
expects that to happen in the bond market. But it does, it can
Yeah.
happen. And so when you do put money into the market, whether it's bonds whether it's, stocks, whether it's something more extreme, you are taking a risk. You are
Yes.
taking that risk that could go to zero, or worse if you're doing, some very elaborate things that some people do, like shorts and other things. It could be worse than that. So
Mm,
you just have to know what your risk is and be comfortable with it, and
that's true.
know how big of the risk you're taking.
I love that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
index funds work best for me because I just feel like I'm getting something all the time, and
Mhm.
for you guys
Yeah.
that's listening, like you can do like 25 a week or something, send it over to Fidelity or wherever you
Mhm.
choose, and it does build up. And I'm like, okay,
It
and it's a good way to
does.
save. And mine's
Yeah.
under a Roth IRA, so I can pull it out if I want
Oh,
to,
so
if I
you've got
need
tax.
to.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so it's I think that's a good option, especially for people that are it's going to be long term because especially if you're not doing day
Yeah.
trading, it's not going to be overnight.
Yeah, so it's gotta fit with what you're trying to accomplish, and a lot of
Yeah.
people do go to indexes because it's easier, right? You don't have to think about it, you don't have to, like, pick and choose stuff. If you own the S&P 500, you own
There
the
you
S&P
go.
5, there's nothing that you're choosing. So a lot of people will lean towards that, especially if they're doing it themselves, because nobody wants to spend the time trying to research, like, this new
Yeah.
company and what's gonna happen with it. It's just too hard to deal with.
It's too much and people too busy.
Yeah,
So
exactly, unless you have that as an interest or hobby that you
yeah,
like.
that's true. And that's not my hobby. Oof. So what it's a lot to research. So what are your thoughts on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? Because some people are like,
Yeah,
yeah, my retirement's gonna be from Bitcoin. Some people believe that and stuff. And
yeah.
I was into the cryptocurrency phase at one point, lost money and got into the rug
Mm.
pull situation.
Oh,
What
no.
Yeah, I did. I got
Yeah,
got into a situation. I lost some money
it's
and
hard.
I just
Yeah.
and like I said, everything's made up anyway. It could have been real, but people take advantage of people. So that's what it is.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. Well, I can't talk too much about it because the SEC won't let us talk
Oh
about it
yeah,
very
that's
much.
true. That's true.
Yeah, but I can do some general stuff. I mean, that should say something. The
Yeah.
SEC won't let us talk about it. So
See?
it is an open market right now without a lot of regulation. So I would just keep that in mind. Again, it's trendy right now. I don't know if that trend's going to stay in place or not. And do your research. That is an area that you really do need to do research on. And that is an area that I always suggest, if you're going to do that, you got to go tiptoe in and know that you could go to zero very easily on that stuff, just because it is unregulated. It is kind of a wild, wild west out there right now.
Yes.
Um, and it's one of those things that we kind of fall into, oh, let's see, what company can I think of? Like banks, or, Fidelity has gotten
Mhm.
very into cryptocurrency and things like that. So we think of these big companies that are like getting really heavily involved and offering lots of things, that it must be really safe, or it must be something that I
Mhm.
have to do. And I would say it's still a world that, if the SEC won't let me advise on it, then I would say
Yeah.
you want to tread lightly, probably, or just do
Yeah.
your research and be really comfortable before you get involved with that.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Yeah, and
Mhm.
even the NFTs, all those things, you have to do research.
Yeah.
Don't just get caught up
Yeah.
and pay all these gas fees and stuff.
Mhm.
So, what books do you recommend that, people could read and get more
Yeah.
information on finance?
Yeah, so Ramit Sethi's book is very good. If you're kind of a
Yes.
do-it-yourselfer and you wanna do that, I think it's a great starting point. Now, he hates people like me. He, like, hates financial advisors,
Yeah, I
but
thought you'd
I
say
think
that.
he's got some good points. Well, I think he's wrong, honestly. Obviously,
Yeah,
I think what we do is
yeah,
very important,
it
and I think
is.
he was funny. He was on a podcast that's for financial advisors, and the gentleman who runs it is a financial advisor. His name's Michael Kitches. He's pretty well known in our industry. And he was funny. He's like, don't you think that there's something there for somebody who's been with the family the whole time? They know the situation. They can give you really good advice. For me, say he sits there and he goes, nope.
Oh, man.
Which is fine. I mean, he's allowed to have his opinions. I just think he hasn't met the right ones.
Yeah, that's what I was
But
thinking.
yeah, so anyhow, but he does have a really good book, and he has very solid advice on how to do things on your own, if you're going to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Um, So I think that's a great book. I'm actually in the middle of reading the Tony Robbins Money book, and I think that
Oh,
that
I like
might be a good
Tony.
one for a lot of people to read as well. I always say try to stay away from books where if you're starting to read it and you don't understand what they're talking about, that's probably not a good place to start,
Mm,
because what's going to happen is you get very overwhelmed by not understanding and the feelings of inadequacy that happens, and then it just makes you feel bad and you don't do anything. So try to find books that are written in a way that you understand what they're
yeah.
talking about, you feel like you could implement, or at least just give you an understanding of what's going on out there. Because it's difficult. I mean, it's very hard to
Yeah.
know, should I do a Roth, should I do a traditional, should I
Oh,
do
man.
401k, how does the 401k work with my traditional IRA? There's not a lot. You can Google traditional IRA and learn all about it, but
Yeah.
you can't necessarily figure out that, oh, if I'm eligible for a 401k, then my traditional IRA, for the most part, I can't deduct into. I don't get a
Mm,
tax deduction for
yep.
that. Even if you're eligible for the 401k, on a lot of cases, you can't do that. That's not written anywhere. And if you don't know that, it can be very confusing, and you could end up making lots of mistakes that so it's just one of those things that you just want to kind of tread lightly into this stuff, because there's all these rules out there that people don't know that
Oh,
overlap and
man.
cause issues, and you're sitting there like a year or two later going, well, that would have been nice if I'd known that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and why did you say that a 401k is just not enough? You
Mm.
mentioned that
Yeah, I
it's
do. Yeah, and
yeah.
I get some heat from that. So there's a couple of reasons. Is one Okay, so my first and foremost reason is that taxes in retirement can be a problem. And people, even if they are eligible or if they have a Roth option of their 401k, often aren't taking advantage of it, or at least having a discussion with somebody of like, should I be putting some into that? Because there's no income limitations on that one. You could make $1 million and still put it into the Roth portion of your 401k, which is great. And in fact, if you go to our YouTube channel, my business partner just did a video on
Oh,
Roth 401k. So if anybody's interested, Chris is on there talking about it.
yeah.
But essentially, I would say that the biggest thing that the 401ks don't do is you just kind of put in money, and it's a great tool for that. However, a lot of times people don't think about the taxes, and they aren't necessarily saving enough in those things. They're going up to
Yeah.
the match, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't go up to the match, but is that going to be enough? I don't know. Life's gotten very expensive.
Man.
Inflation, you mentioned, it's just gotten
Mhm.
expensive. And is that going to be enough? The other thing is kind of a mindset thing, and this is the thing that everybody kind of gets mad at me about, is it's an automatic thing, right? So it's very easy to just, it comes out of your paycheck and it goes into the 401k, which is what makes it a great tool. However, we never look at it then. There's
Mm,
never like, could I put more away? Should I be changing my investments? Should I, we also have a target date fund talk on the YouTube thing is a channel as well. If people want to hear about target date funds, is that the right thing I should be? We don't look at it because it's automatic, and we just think, oh, it's automatically going
yep.
in. I don't need to look at it. And I have people come to me and they say, I haven't looked at my 401k in 5 years.
Oh, dang.
That's not good, because mistakes can happen. Maybe it's going into the wrong fund. Maybe they're not putting as much as you told them to put in. Maybe it's sitting in cash and you don't know because you're not looking at it. Like,
Mm,
the problem with 401ks in some respects is that it's too convenient.
mm,
And my philosophy is that in order to get to financial independence, there's two things that have to be in place, which is awareness and clarity. Awareness of what's going on and how you're doing with your money and that kind of thing. And
yep.
clarity of like what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish and that kind of thing. Without those two things, financial independence is, I can't say it's impossible, but it's very hard to get to.
Yeah. Yep. It'll just be going with emotions and not know
Yeah.
what's coming or what might hit you.
Exactly, and you're just kind of, like you said, going through the motions, and is that being really is that really managing your money?
No, no. You have to
Yeah,
be
it's letting it
aware.
manage you. Yeah, you're it's
Yes.
managing you in that case. And that's
Yep.
kind of my biggest issues with 401ks or the, just put it on a automatic savings and don't look at it. I just think I think it's good for a short period of time, but you have to make dates with yourself to go look at things and be involved with
Yes.
it.
That makes sense. And write
Yeah.
down it get an Excel sheet and write down all your expenses and stuff because it helps.
Yeah.
Or at least put
It
it in your computer.
does.
I'm the tech person. I like it on
Mhm.
my computer, but
Yeah,
I had to do that. I
I do
recently
too.
did that a month ago to see exactly what I'm spending, and it actually helped me. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, a big trick that people have, which they laugh at me all the time, is like, look at your credit card bill. And people are
Mm,
like, oh, what? I was like, when's the last time you looked at your credit card bill?
see.
I haven't looked at it in a year. I'm like, well, how do you know what you're spending your money on? You have
See?
no idea. And that's why they don't want to do with a budget because that's really what a budget is, right? You have to look at your
Yep.
credit card
Yep.
bills and you
I'm
have to look at your
like,
bank statements. And people don't want to do that.
oh my
And if
goodness.
they just made a date with themselves for 10 minutes a week, I'm going to look at my credit card statements, they would find so much money that they're wasting on little things like little subscriptions, little
Oh
renewals
man.
that happen that you don't even realize. Fraud happens all the
Oh,
time, and
yes.
it's not huge amounts. It's like
Mhm.
$50, $20, $100, and you don't even notice it, and they're getting away with it because
See?
you don't look at your credit card statement or you don't look at your
My
bank.
God. I don't know how anybody would do that. I'm like watching it on my app every day on my phone. What's going on? What's going on? I'm like,
I
I'm just,
know. I think that's great. I mean, honestly, I do. But I mean, I get it. A lot of people don't want to do that, but just make
yeah,
a little date with yourself. Every Thursday morning when I'm drinking coffee, I'm
there
going
we
to look
go.
at my credit card statement.
I like
That's
that.
it. Yeah, make it easy.
Yes. So before we wrap it up, because I know we're coming up on
Sure.
time, I didn't even know we were past the time.
Okay.
Having so much fun talking about the money. Um,
Great. I'm having fun too.
what workshops and stuff do you have? Do you have any workshops or anything for some people that may want to be
Yeah.
in a
Yeah,
workshop?
yeah, yeah. I don't have anything scheduled right now, but I do ongoing building money habits workshops. So if anybody's interested, you can just go to our website, you can email me and just ask when the next one is. I'm happy to do that. We also have lots of videos on YouTube so people can watch those. I'm very active on LinkedIn so people can, I guess follow or whatever the word is
Oh,
on like
perfect.
connect. Yeah, on LinkedIn and I'm happy to I'm happy to have them follow that kind of stuff. We're always about education. So even if they don't get a live webinar with us, we have tons of that. And actually, I should say we do monthly a for anybody who works someplace and has a 401k that they're eligible for, it's made for you guys, because 401k participants don't get anybody talking to them. So we do
Yeah.
monthly it's the third Wednesday of every month at 12 p.m. Pacific time, so 3 p.m. Eastern. We do a little 15-minute monthly webinar. So if anybody's interested in that, they can let me know and I'm happy to send them the link for that.
Nice. And all this is on your website. They can contact you
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
Happy to be open to anybody that wants to learn more.
Yeah, yes, let's get our money right, y'all, so we can live our rich life, whatever that is to you. Come on, let's get it. Let's
Absolutely.
make it happen. And before we go, I always ask people, what's a quote or saying you go by?
Oh gosh, that's a great one. Okay, so I was going to say it earlier, but Kenny Chesney has a song, and he goes, "Who lives life like we do?" And then the crowd screams back, "We do." I love that because we live life
Oh,
the way that we live life, not
oh, I like
not
that.
with restrictions. So that's what comes to mind immediately. Is my
Sprinkle,
husband and I always say
sprinkle.
that, "Who lives life like we do?" We do.
I love it. That's a great quote. See, I love asking this question because there's so
Yeah.
many different quotes and perspectives. Love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for coming on
Thank
here. I've learned a
you.
lot from you, and I'm sure the audience have
Thank
learned a
you.
lot. And I'm sure they'll be reaching out and getting some private consultations with you wherever they need so they can get to that rich life. And
Thank
I want to
you.
thank everybody for listening today and supporting me. Please subscribe and stay safe out there, y'all.